are live. Okay. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the very first change in our format of the WBEC window. We are so excited that you have decided to open the window on your week with us. And we are getting ready to launch into this new format. So a couple of things that if you've been joining us in the past that you're going to see that might be a little different is the fact that you're going to see all of us at the same time. And so I want to encourage you, if you know how to, if you want to, it'd be really great is to go up into the right-hand corner of your screen if you're on Zoom and push, you'll see a thing that says, it might say speaker view. It might say gallery view. Make sure that you have a gallery view so you can see 6 boxes. You should see 6 beautiful faces. And that's going to be the best way to watch the window with us, to see all of our windows, because this format is going to be a lot more conversational. So in the past, we've gone around the room and we've reported out on what's going on. And through some conversation as a team, we decided that you guys might like to kind of eavesdrop in on our conversations, because that's what we do afterwards and before and everything, and really make it more conversational. And so what we want to encourage you guys to do is to also be very active in the chat. We're going to introduce a topic. We're all going to talk a little bit about that topic. And then we're going to be watching the chat both here in Zoom. And if you see me, the team knows if I look this way, it's because I'm watching the chat on Facebook, because we are streaming live this week. This is another part of the window being a little bit different than what we've done in the past. And so make sure you jump into the chat. We're going to watch that, because again, this is going to be, we're going to introduce the topic. We're going to talk a little bit about it. And then we have not gotten rid of our fabulous moment of development. And today our topic is going to be courageous conversations, and our own Emily is going to be talking about that. And so to kick it off, I'm just going to real quickly introduce myself for anybody who is new to joining us. And I am Steph McPhee. I am the communications and community guide, as well as the North Florida coordinator, helping all you guys with site visits virtually now here in North Florida. We have on the call with us today our amazing CEO and President Nancy Allen. Nancy, give everybody a wave.
Hello, hello.
And we're also joined by Emily McHugh, also down there in South Florida in the Palm Beach areas and Treasure Coast. We have Joanna over in Tampa Bay, and Diane down with us in Central Florida.
Hello.
Over in Central Florida. And you may see a new face. And some of you are going, wait, there's a new face added to the gang. Well, we are so excited to add to our family. Nancy keeps going and helping us grow. We have a phenomenal new coordinator, Carmen Perez. Some of you may actually know Carmen. She's a fabulous part of our community and organization, and Carmen is coming on to help do certifications and site visits down in South Florida. What that's going to do is it's going to free up our own Nancy to get to all this new stuff she's doing, like writing books and producing all this great content and meeting with you, because that's one of her favorite things to do. So Nancy's still going to obviously be around and be very active, but now we have another coordinator to help. So actually, Nancy, I'm going to let you introduce Carmen, and let's get to know Carmen a little bit.
Beautiful. It's my pleasure to welcome officially Carmen. This is her first visit with us and with you. And Carmen has a background in retail. So I think that that'll be really, really helpful to our WBEs and potential WBEs. And let me turn it over to Carmen to say just a couple of words about who she is and what she's passionate about.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Nancy, and good afternoon to everyone. I really am excited to be part of this team and to work in partnership with such a group of accomplished women. So pertaining to myself, just to give you a little bit more detail pertaining to my retail experience, I have over 35 years experience working both in retail and in the wholesale end of the business. In retail, I started my career like a lot of people do, got hired during the holiday season. I had such a passion for it because I love working with people and, of course, the merchandise was another key driver there. And I stayed on with George Marsh. For those of you that live in Florida and have been around for over 30 years, the name will probably sound familiar. So that's where I primarily started my retailing career, in George Marsh. By the time that I wrapped up my career with George Marsh, because unfortunately they were, of course, merged into Burdines, I already at that time had 3 kids, 3 sons, and I had been a buyer and I had been doing a lot of traveling, so I decided to step back. And I went into the vendor sector of the business, of the industry, working for Bally Bras. And from there, I stayed with that corporation for another 16 years. And I had various roles within that, working in the wholesale industry. I was sales planner. I was the assistant to the account manager for Burdines. I was in charge of running their whole advertising portfolio for them. I also was in charge of doing the training seminars, etc. And then as life goes on, and due to the nature of the industry, as we all know, there's a lot of mergers throughout the years, which are from big major companies. I went back to the retailing end of the business, and I got hired with Burdines, which and then 2 years later converted to Macy's. And I was with Macy's, the regional manager with them. I had a huge territory. I oversaw 4 regions, and I was primarily responsible for managing all their business strategies in a division which was intimate apparel. So yes, ladies, I can tell when someone is not wearing the right size bra. And aside from that, also creating very strong bonds with our different vendor communities to drive brand awareness, to continue driving their business and growing their growth, their sales. So it was a job or a position that I really loved, but it required a lot of traveling. I was traveling every single week, 3 to 4 days out of the week. So after being with them for 13 years, and of course, you know, things change, your life changes. There's other personal things that affect your personal life. And I decided to step back and went back into the vendor sector of the business, working for Calvin Klein as a brand ambassador, utilizing all the skills and knowledge that I had, keeping me still busy, but it gave me the flexibility where I did not have to work completely full time, and I love that. At this point in my life, I still want to maintain myself busy. I like being productive with the time that I have doing things. But I am looking forward to seeing how I can help, you know, the WBEC members, and utilizing the experience that I have in retailing and in the wholesale industry to further grow their business and to lead them during these difficult times with coronavirus, how it's impacting all of us. So it's a pleasure to, you know, to join this group.
Welcome.
And,
Welcome.
thank you. So I guess I'll pass it on to Diane or to Steph.
And Carmen, I can't wait to get you one-on-one. Nancy told me, I'm surprised our paths haven't crossed at some point. I had started in retail myself, and you will laugh, I started in intimate apparel.
Oh my God, it's a very small world.
Yeah, some of you may know from the South called Parisians. It was eventually bought by Saks.
Yes.
So, and I opened the first Calvin Klein pop-up store in Parisians in Atlanta.
Oh my gosh, well Steph, you and I then need to get together and really connect. Yes.
And there's a lot of stories there, guys, let me tell you. And being a manager in intimates is an interesting world. So.
It is.
Awesome. Well, we're so excited. Well, we wanted to kick off with kind of a fun topic today because we missed you guys last week because of the celebrations of the 4th of July holiday. And we wanted to have a little bit of a conversation because 4th of July was a little different this year because of COVID-19. Yeah. So we wanted to open up the conversation and maybe just get a chance to talk about how things were different. And, you know, for example, up here in St. Augustine, as in a lot of places, all of the big fireworks shows were canceled, right? And so, you know, there was a little bit of a disappointment, but I have to admit, you guys know I'm really lucky. I live at the beach, and our condo complex has some awesome people that love to put off fireworks. So we had our own pretty awesome fireworks show just by some of our neighbors, but we'd love to hear, you know, so tell us, guys. So Joanna, how are things over in Tampa?
Yeah, so well, pretty much I have twin 2-year-olds and a kindergartner, so we kind of keep fireworks low-key around here. We did go on a bike ride on the Sunset, and we saw some of the fireworks going off in the neighborhoods, which seemed more than last year. You know, now this year we had more of the neighborhood fireworks instead of the big shebangs that happened. But it was good for the kids to see it and experience it, and then come home and not be afraid when they heard it at night, because it went on until wee hours at night.
Oh my
But yeah.
You guys, it's here in Orlando. It sounded like a war zone. It was the most, I have never heard anything in my life like this before. And I talked with my neighbors about it later. My little block, nobody shot off fireworks, you know, but all around, I lived in downtown Orlando, kind of near downtown in one of the neighborhoods, and it's a quiet neighborhood usually, and you could hear it because there was like a fog in the air, and you could hear for miles and miles, boom, 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 boom. I've only heard that in movies, like in, you know, about war. Never heard that in my life before. And it was hours and hours and hours. And at one point I was with my mom and her boyfriend at his house, you know, in our bubble, having dinner. And I was trying to drive home before dark. And I literally had to drive around people in their neighborhood shooting off fireworks in the street. It was very disconcerting. You know, I know people were really celebrating. I was just happy to hear that no one got hurt, you know. So.
Yeah, I think it's right. It does seem like, because again, we had a pretty fancy show, which we don't normally you just see a few, but sounds like everybody maybe bought more, right? Because they didn't have the big ones. And what about you guys down there in South Florida?
Testosterone was out in the middle of the street.
Yes. My family and I just wanted to share. We usually get together and we do like a pool party, and that's what we did. And also within our neighbors, we just did our own outside, and that was it. Yeah. But you know, just kept it nice and quiet. It wasn't no major big fireworks, just the sparklers, because my grandkids, the oldest one is 13, and then the boys are 9 years old. So yes, but we try to play it safe. We all wore our mask actually, because my mom happens to be a high risk category. And so we're trying to be careful even when we get together with our own intimate family. So yes.
Oh, wow,
it was different, but we still celebrated. So that's what's important. Yes.
Yeah. It was everybody a bit more smaller, right? Like, you know, again, we normally would go up to the hotel next door, right? But this year was funny. My daughter was thrilled because she's like every other kid, right? She doesn't like fireworks. She's 5. So she was so excited. We're staying home, kind of like you said, Joanna, like, and she actually got over her fear a little bit of the fireworks because we could watch them from the balcony versus being in a big crowd of people. So I find she really is enjoying this staying at home thing. I don't find it either. What about you, Nancy?
I've recently moved to a new neighborhood, so I can't compare what it, you know, how it's been in this neighborhood compared to previous years. But like Diane said, it went on for hours into the wee hours of the morning. I think, you know, the noise started around 9 p.m. and went all the way to about 2 a.m.
Oh my
gosh. I think it was different neighborhoods. And I really think as well as just low-key neighborhoods doing a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but, you know, every neighborhood, and it just was, it was loud. But you know, after a while you kind of get tired of it, right? I mean, we could see a little bit of it, but that low rumble was interesting. And I think really people just decided, okay, we can't have the big things in the parks. Let's just, you know, do a little neighborhood gathering. It'd be interesting to see whether or not there's been, you know, how many more fireworks were sold. For a long time, we had a company certified in Florida, that was a woman-owned fireworks company. And then they're no longer certified because she sold the business when she retired, but she used to be the largest supplier of fireworks. They had contracts with Disney and the U.S. Army. I mean, it was really interesting.
Wow.
I did a couple of her site visits. Very, very interesting.
That would be an interesting site visit.
Isn't Disney no longer using fireworks? So I bet this year was like a big productive year for the firework industry.
Yeah. They're happy to make up.
Yeah, they went out with the
doing fireworks right now because that part's just shut down for COVID and all. So,
Yeah.
but Disney just did reopen over the weekend. They opened 2 parks, so the Magic Kingdom and the Animal Kingdom over the weekend.
I've been living vicariously through that pass holder group on Facebook, guys. Let me tell you, if you can't see, there's always a mini or something behind me. So,
That's cute.
so actually, if you guys want, that's a really good, because, you know, Disney and all this discussion about masks. And so we wanted to talk a little bit about the masks. And so here you go, guys. We all got our masks out ready. So
Right.
let's see your masks. Let's see what everybody's got. Okay. Yeah. Oh, we got some good ones.
You guys are fancy, but I'm really like plain. So these are my 2 options. You know, and it depends how serious I need to be.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. That's what the Disney conversation, this is some of the people we're talking about going out in the heat all day, which, you know, I have to admit, I haven't done that. I don't know if you guys have. I haven't been out all day. I go do my things and I come home and you rip the mask off as soon as you get in the car and you go, But it was funny, Dorena, you showed that because a lot of people were saying that the paper masks are cooler than all these fancy ones that we all have. But I have to admit, me being a fashionista over here, you know, I gotta have, Emily and I were talking about this beforehand, right? I gotta have one for every outfit.
Wow.
How many of you guys? Yeah, right? Who else has
I got a couple, but not that
This
many.
one is reversible.
Oh, look,
You might
Nancy's
as
is
well.
reversible.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
Total use. This is the one we're doing for the hospital. This is an example of what we're doing for them.
Oh, let's see, Emily. So Emily's company pivoted. So you want to talk about that a little bit, Emily? You guys pivoted your business, right, for masks?
Yeah, well, we have our bag company, Kasuri, and we got the opportunity to provide masks for a local hospital. And we went through the process of creating pretty much a virtual factory in short order. And we have so far been able to ship 3/4 of our order. It's a multi-month kind of thing. But we've been able to, thank God, get the masks out to our hospitals, and the feedback has been very positive so far.
Congratulations.
And
That's
I
awesome.
think
Good job.
one of the things that Emily didn't mention that bears mentioning in her pivot is that she's created a really neat cottage industry, because she has people. Emily, tell us how many people you have who sew for you, but she has contracted sewers, and it has really helped the economy, and it's given some purpose and some extra money to some really deserving people.
Yes, we have retirees, we have people who recently lost their jobs, all kinds of circumstances, and it really is very humbling and encouraging and inspiring to see that this one project can touch so many lives. And we have people in Vero Beach, in Port St. Lucie, in Fort Pierce, in different cities in our region who are benefiting from this project.
That's wonderful.
Congratulations. So I think everybody on here has all of our counties, or everybody represented, whose county has mandated. Let's see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've all mandated, right? Right? Look at Emily. Yeah, we have, it's interesting up here, St. Johns County mandated, and but to your point, Emily, I had to laugh that you do that. The tourists aren't as compliant around here, we've noticed. But let's talk about that. Are there any other places that you're seeing? Because I know when we initially started all this, we were still doing some giveaways in places, some of the chambers, and I think they're still doing that in Central Florida in some places, right, Diane?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then also we started off with Orange County, and then it's kind of branched out. So the other counties have been more mask aware, let's say. So yeah, it's very
Yeah,
interesting.
here in Tampa, in Hillsborough County, any small business can request a one-time quantity of 250 reusable face coverings. So I'm going to add the link to that on the chat if anybody's interested in taking.
Oh, that's awesome.
And the libraries are donating masks also.
Libraries, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fabulous.
Yeah, our library, and I recently learned that in St. Lucie County, one of our libraries is teaching people how to sew with sewing machines owned by the library, and they're making masks to donate to people in the community who can't afford to get them. So
Melanie,
I thought that was
I'm really happy to hear that, because I was a library rat when I was growing up. And now I wonder how many people actually go to the library anymore, right? So I love the fact that the libraries are reinventing themselves. I know you can order online, you can get audiobooks straight from the library, but to think that they're actually have sewing machines and they're teaching that, I think that's wonderful. It's a great skill for young women to learn, and for those of us who have some extra time to be able to go and help out in the community. That's great.
that is great.
Yes.
Angela mentioned in the comment that her son was married today with masks in Monroe County, and I had a friend also attend a wedding in a church, and they were all mandated to wear masks, but it worked out, and they were able to have their celebration. So
Yeah, that's
and I also want to share. So I mentioned that I recently moved and I bought a home, and when we had the closing, it was, we wanted to take a picture with, me with the keys and all. And my realtor said, okay, well, let's take a picture, mask on or mask off. I said, mask on, because it'll remind us all that this was when we had, when I bought the house. So I think it's perfect, right? So these are the times we're living in. And I think that by way of example, we should all, yes, have your wedding and have the masks on, have your celebration and have the masks on, because historically, when your kids and your grandkids and people look back at this time, it'll be something great to remember and to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the right thing to do, right? And I have to admit, it has been interesting to watch, like you said, Nancy, like here in our two counties, we have the initiatives, and they're asking people to send in their pictures showing wearing the masks, and they're sharing them on their Facebook pages and all that stuff to really show people getting behind it. And number one, I have to admit, some of the pictures are just so cute, the families and all the matching masks. Like, you talk about a whole other way to get out your creativity. And then we've talked about on one of the other calls, like the other thing I've been seeing is people with the branded masks for their companies. And I just think that was incredible. I never thought about that. And, we've got a couple companies up here, one of the sign companies, and they're doing donations of the signs to thank coworkers, or a sign out front that just says wear your mask or whatever. And same thing, Nancy, every time they drop off signs, they're all wearing their masks, but they're branded the business. So,
Good way to advertise.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
I mean, if you had to do it, let's make it fun. But I think, again, like you said, Nancy, excuse me, we can support the businesses, and, we want to encourage you guys to all just continue to share with us on our Facebook groups or anything. If there are places of that are giving, a lot of places are still, I know here we're trying to get another load in to do, just like, I think you mentioned, Joanna, where you get the bag and you pull up and you show your business card and you get a supply. We're getting more here, and I'm sure the other counties are going to do the same for businesses. But then also, as we get ready for the fall, talking about the kids going to school, what that's going to look like. And, my daughter has just as many. Her grandparents now, instead of buying other things, buy her cute masks, because the ones, of course, she likes, like the glittery one her friend had at school, was $20. And I was like, Mama's not buying you a $20 mask, but Nana would. So it's funny, right? Even now, the grandparents are going to swoop in and buy them the cute mask, just like they bought the toy that they want. So. like you said, Nancy, it's a whole different shift in culture, and but it'll show, we can always look back on it.
Well,
And
what's really important to interject here is that it's important to how you care for your masks.
Yeah.
I just like to highlight that point. Please wash your masks whenever you wear them. Before you wear them, wash your mask. After you wear it, wash it. Don't just put it away. And if you are out around a lot of people, especially, take like a tissue to remove your mask and put it inside of something so that all the germs on the outside of that doesn't get on everything else in your purse or something like that. So you want to really, and then wash your face.
Yeah.
Wash your face. We really need to take, I think a lot of people are still maybe downplaying a little bit of what needs to be done, but one of the things, basics, is just washing your mask, your hands, and your face.
that's
And also covering your nose when you wear the mask.
Right.
Exactly, not below your chin.
Not just
Here.
yeah. How many times are we out? We see people like this. I just want to.
Or wearing them under the shin right here. Yes. Yeah.
It's so true, Emily, because even one of my family, a friend of mine didn't understand why we had so many, and I said because we come in and then we do that. Like I get the wipes and I pull it off mine and my daughter's, and we wash our hands and then we throw them straight in the wash.
Yeah.
And we have for the next day the one on the hook for the next one, and we just rotate them around. Besides, they're cute, but that's great. Okay, I'm going to shift us a little bit here from the mask conversation, and let's talk about events, because we've also, again, continuing to talk about, the shift in things. So many things. There were 2 really great events that went out in the email this morning that we definitely want to make sure you keep your eyes about. But all these companies and everything are really shifting. So let's talk about what kind of events you're seeing in your areas there. And Emily, you want to kick off with what's going on down south?
Well, here I am in Fort Pierce representing Port St. Lucie, Vero Beach, Stewart, and the Palm Beach area. And I went to my first live networking event last Friday, and some of the ladies from that wonderful event, the Vero Beach Premier Women's Network, I think might be on here with us today. And Ellen, hi Ellen. Anyway, so it was a really great event. At first I was reticent to go because we've been obviously not been congregating. And so I was concerned about how that would play out. But I did wear my mask. We had to actually sign waivers that if anything happened, no one was responsible. But I think what I learned from that was that you have to exercise your own caution and do what's comfortable for yourself, protect yourself. So for me, I wore my mask pretty much the whole time, for the exception of when I ate, and then I put it over my nose. But it was a wonderful event what was intriguing was, people haven't seen each other in so long, and we were really eager to connect. And we learned so much from each other in that space. So it was a wonderful opportunity to do that again.
Oh, that is awesome. I haven't known anybody that's gone to an in-person, so thank you. So good to hear somebody. Joanna?
Emily, how many people were there at the event?
I didn't remember the exact count. It was a pretty good amount. It might have been over 40 odd ladies were there, which is quite significant.
Interesting. Yeah, I noticed that the South Tampa Chamber of Commerce is starting to host in-person events, but they're limiting it to 16 people, and they have to RSVP before and then receive, the directions of how the event will work. But yeah, and there's still the Working Women of Tampa Bay hosting events virtually. So I'll link those links in the chat box for you ladies.
That's awesome. Yeah, it was interesting. The Jacksonville Chamber had started to open up, but then they kind of, I think, paused and went back to virtual for this month. And the St. John's Chamber, we actually had a case that impacted the chamber staff. So same thing, they were all planning, some of these in-person, and I still think there is an in-person masquerade event happening at the end of the month. I think it's the Celebration of Business Award up in Ponte Vedra, but they're doing a masquerade theme, so it's show off your masks but yeah. Anybody else? What other kinds of events are you guys seeing in your markets? Diane, how about Central Florida?
I haven't been to any yet. I'm just holding up at home, but there is a political hobnob coming, and I was kind of surprised to see that that is going to be in person. And I believe that's next, I believe it's at the end of this month, end of July. Yeah. So that's in West Orange County. It'll be really interesting to see. And so that will be the politicians usually are there to say hello and with no handshaking, and it'd be like, hey, how you doing? Stand 6 feet away, you know, so it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see.
Any other updates from anybody on events? Okay, well, we've hit sort of the 1:30 timeframe. So what we want to do at 1:30 is we're going to shift our conversation, and we are excited to hear from Emily today, as she's going to talk about courageous conversations. And this is just, I have to admit, such a topic, as we all know, now more than ever, right? Whether it be the race discussion, whether it even be the COVID discussion, right? I mean, there are so many different ways that we are engaging in conversation. And so Emily, we're just so excited to see what you've got to share with us. And hopefully you should be able to share your screen. And we're going to get into this topic a little bit here for a few minutes.
So the courageous part of the conversation is that Emily forgot to do her presentation. So I'm just teasing.
Oh. Emily, you're on mute.
Here, that would be a good start. All right.
There you go.
All righty, so here is the screen. Are you all seeing my screen from the beginning? It's coming through? All right.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we see it.
Yes, so today's topic is definitely one that speaks to the times we're in, as Steph just mentioned. And just again, by way of introduction, my name is Emily McHugh, the Regional Program Coordinator for the Treasure Coast region and Palm Beach County. And the topic, courageous conversations, saying what needs to be said, knowing how and when. And really, the saying what needs to be said has to do with the context and the situation obviously you're in. Knowing how is where we're kind of going to focus more so today, and it will also inform some of the things that you might want to say as well. And when is always now. It's always now. You want to have these conversations sooner than later. It's time is of the essence. So going into this, we will think about the fact that you can apply this. We're going to deconstruct what a courageous conversation is, and then go into a framework that you can apply to any conversation. And so the first question is, why does it take courage in the first place to have a conversation of any kind? And what comes to mind is it depends on the level of discomfort that might be involved. So if you're comfortable talking with your friends, having a casual conversation, then there's not much courage needed because you're just talking as you normally would. But anytime there's a challenge or some kind of issue that might create some discomfort, that's where the courage levels quotient seems to go higher. And especially in light of the times we're in, where people are having conversations on many levels, there's been a lot of discussion on how to have those conversations. And so that's what we're going to delve into today, that framework. So why the discomfort? Because something is at stake. You have something to gain or something to lose. If you don't have anything to lose or gain, you don't really care. But something at stake, could it be your job? Could it be your position? Could it be something? Then you're going to take it a little bit more to heart. So you have to ask yourself, what is at stake in this conversation that you're about to have? So here's a quote that I found by Claude Bernal. He is a renowned French physiologist, and he's known for many quotes. And this one says, "It is what we think we know already that often prevents us from learning." It is what we think we know already that often prevents us from learning. And when you see a quote like this, you might say, well, could someone be arrogant? Could someone be conceited to think they already know? And so what are these preconceived notions? What are these default assumptions that we might be making? And this is an opportunity to challenge that. So what exactly is it that we need to learn? What do we need to learn? Well, before we get into what we need to learn, we have to ask ourselves, do we want to learn? Do we want to understand? And it cannot be assumed that we even want to learn, because some people don't. So, which I don't think is any of you, because you're here. But the reality is that there are people who do not want to learn. And we have to accept that. We can't force anyone to learn or to want to understand, but hopefully they will, and then we can go forward with that conversation. But it takes intent, the foundation. So what is the purpose of the conversation? It's all about your intention. What are you intending to accomplish by having a conversation in the first place? Is your intent to understand? Is it to learn? Is it to share? Is it to teach? What are you intending to do, or what are you hoping will happen from this conversation that you're having? And this is very critical, because many times we enter some conversations carelessly, or they may just happen. We didn't plan for them, but if it's a conversation where we just kind of treat it lightly, we need to have more care. And this is about exercising the care, not being, what shall I say? Not being nervous in terms of being on eggshells, but just exercising that extra intent of wanting to have a positive effect. So we have a cast of characters here that we're going to talk about. We're putting this conversation today within a business context, since most of you here, you're business owners, business women, and we want to see how these relationships, these conversations play out in different scenarios. So as you know, the world is a stage, and you can add to this list, whether you're an employer to employee, employee to employer, employee to employee, business to customer, and of course, you to you, you to you. The conversation you have with yourself is probably the first and most crucial and most courageous before you can even deal with anyone else. And you can certainly add to this list. You can add to the list, add whoever you want, add your husband, add your wife, add your brother, add your sister, your son, your child, and on, and you get the idea. But again, today we're talking about the business context specifically. So there are challenges that require courage. So why do we need courage, as I said before? So let's look at a little bit of these scenarios. So if you have an employer to employee, what are some challenges that could exist? Well, there are things called performance reviews. There are crises that may come up in a business from time to time. And again, add to the list. This is not at all exhaustive, but it's meant to just kind of trigger some ideas or spark some thoughts that you can say, okay, well, this is my situation, and you add that to the list. An employee to the employer, maybe the culture of the company. Someone might not be comfortable with the culture, or they're looking to get a raise, and it's a little challenging. How do I ask for the raise? Will I get the raise? An employee to employee, you have to work together as teams. Are you comfortable working together? Do you like each other? Or is one the slacker and one doing all the work and you're carrying the burden? You know, that type of thing. That's always the refrain from teams. Is there harassment going on any level? And is there bullying going on? And then as far as business to customer, might I have made an error in a bid that I put in for a contract? Might I need to increase my price and feel very awkward doing that? Or some other scenario. And then the you to you, certainly not last, but definitely not least. Do you have self-doubt? Are you second guessing yourself? And you just got to kind of pause and take that in, because that is going to have an impact on all these other conversations. So start with yourself, start with what's going on in your own mind, and then you can go forward into some of these scenarios. So what is the obstacle that can prevent us getting through the challenges? We have these barriers, either known, real, or imagined, that exist, again, in your own mind, the other person's mind, or the circumstance just seems so challenging in of itself. So what are the barriers? And the goal is to overcome these. This wall right here looks kind of insurmountable, but we're about to see that it's not. That's the goal. Okay. So now, if you don't overcome those barriers, you're going to deal with some consequences. So whether you like to want to deal with it or not, it won't change the fact that a problem exists or an issue exists just because you don't know or want to deal with it. There are definite consequences. So for your business, if you don't deal with a performance issue, you may not grow as a company. You might get bad PR if you handle a crisis incorrectly or poorly. As employees to employers, if you don't deal with that culture, you can have a toxic environment which corrodes your business. And of course, if you don't pay people properly, they become unmotivated. They want to leave, they want to do other things, or they slack off. And then of course, if you're an employee dealing with each other, you want to enjoy your colleagues that you work with. And of course, now that many of us are working remotely, maybe we don't have to deal with that as much anymore. I don't know. But you still have people you communicate with. And the happier people are, the easier it is to retain them as employees and feeling appreciated and the satisfaction of doing their work. And clearly, if harassment is not dealt with, you could have a lawsuit on your hand. So clearly that we can steer clear of that happening. Mm-hmm. And then for business to customer, you could lose your customer if you don't deal with them well, and ultimately lose money and could even lose your business. So you have to see that these things can really have a domino effect. And for you as a person, well, you can lose opportunities. You lose time by being indecisive. So it has all of these courageous conversations have definite consequences. Okay, with that being said, what do we want to achieve? This flow. We want to have a smooth and calm flow and get over that big old barrier to where things can flow. The conversation flows, your energy flows because you're releasing that tension. Your intention is positive, so more than likely that will flow through as well. So the whole idea of allowing a space for dialogue to take place where things can flow. All right, now, so let's get into the conversation of the steps. What is the courageous conversation framework? So we have here a 5-step process to be prepared and informed. And that's the thing. Many times we're afraid of certain conversations because we are not prepared. We're not sure what we're getting into. We don't know how to handle it. We are fear of all kinds of things, as I was mentioning before. So if you have a sense of a structure, any single conversation that's challenging, you can apply the same structure to it. So what I encourage you to do, if you have a little, what do you call those things? Those cards. Help me out with the term, I can't remember. Index card, thank you. Take that out and write 1 to 5 on it. Keep it in your little purse or your wallet. And when you're about to have one of these conversations, whip it out and remind yourself, because it's practice that's going to make this make sense. So you want to recognize and inquire about the situation you're in. That's number 1. Mm-hmm. Number 2, you need to have a certain amount of willingness and humility to engage. Number 3, you need to take the time that's necessary to do this. Number 4, you have to have faith in a positive outcome. And number 5, you want to express gratitude for the lesson you're about to learn. So let's go into them a little more closely. Again, these lists that I have here are not exhaustive. You can continue to add to them, but I had to stop somewhere on the page. So the first one with step 1 is to recognize and inquire what. You want to recognize that there's an issue. You want to admit and acknowledge. How many times some people said, well, they never said they were sorry. They never even acknowledged they were wrong. And right there, it's a non-starter. The discussion goes nowhere because you won't even admit there's something to discuss. So that is very critical. And whether you might not see it, If someone else feels there's something to discuss, then there's something to discuss. Okay, so it's a two-way street, not just from your perspective. The other thing is you don't want to be jumping to hasty conclusions. That's where we run into problems. Just kind of try to bring it down and just give the other person a chance. And here's one that's really critical. Do not fear anger. If someone is angry, don't be afraid of that, because there's a place for anger. Maybe there's a reason they're angry, and so you want to deal with that. So being angry in of itself is not a problem. It's what you do with the anger that's the problem, but not the anger itself. You want to get behind the anger. So you want to seek to understand, as I think Dale Carnegie wrote, or no, Stephen Covey, I think in his book, seek to first understand before trying to be understood. Try to get into what the other person is trying to say to you first before being so eager to tell them what you think. And ask straightforward questions. I don't understand. I really need you to help me to understand what the situation is. And the tone, oh my Lord, yes. Tone, be careful of tone. Yes. Oh, tone is so critical. And it's not like asking the question with an accusatory tone. It's just being straightforward. Help me to understand the situation. Simple. And avoid condescension at all costs. People don't know condescension. You're just, again, it goes back to the neutrality. You're not bringing anything to bear. You're just recognizing and inquiring. That's the first step. Number one. Number two, you have to have a willingness and humility to talk about the situation, not avoid it, and confront your own assumptions. You ever hear someone say, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to go there. And just thinking by the virtue of just saying that, you can dismiss a problem or an issue. Absolutely not. That's a very immature way to approach it, and it shows a distinct lack of emotional intelligence, which is what we need to cultivate in order to have these kinds of conversations. So we have to be willing to go there, but go there with a sense of respect and approaching it with the desire to resolve, not to attack or accuse. And then you want to hear, listen, and be willing to learn new vocabulary. We have certain default vocabulary that we use without even being aware of the impact it has. So reevaluating the words that we're using and the vocabulary and how that's coming off to other people. And also understanding that you don't have to agree. Whoever said you have to agree? But you can still listen and you can still learn. You can learn from someone you don't agree with. And that's why a lot of people don't want to talk about politics or religion, because they're more interested in agreeing than learning or understanding or sharing. And that's why those topics are so difficult. But they wouldn't be so difficult if we applied some of these techniques. And then there's an amazing fact that I discovered. We are all the same. We are the same. Okay, your issue today is my issue tomorrow, or vice versa. So we have different shoes, I like to put it. And we may be walking, we're walking in different shoes.
You're still walking.
You're still walking, exactly. And you have somewhere you want to go. You want to get somewhere. Okay, so step 3, you want to take time necessary to find a solution. You want to be patient with the process and realize that one conversation mightn't solve it. It may not resolve this issue. It may take several more conversations or a series of conversations, or I don't know, months, I don't know, whatever the time is. But the point is, start the process. Start the process and you will get where you need to go. Do the research to get the facts straight. Again, that goes back to the assumption. Take the time to go do some research, go learn some history, go get some facts together, and then get help. If you are lost or don't understand or feel like you're in over your head with whatever the situation may be, get some help. Get some help to gain clarity. And all of these things that they have here take some time. They may take some time. Put in the work. It will pay off. Step number 4, have faith in a positive outcome. Well, I like to say that intention guides resolution. So if you have a positive intent, the chances of you having a positive resolution are very high. And I know that in today's conversations and a lot of the topics that are going on, some people feel nothing good will come, or this will just be for now, and then we're going to go back to how things were, and it will blow over and nothing will truly change. Well, my response to that is that may be the case for somebody, but it doesn't have to be the case for me, because I keep the conversation going if I feel something needs to be discussed. And so it's not about who else is out there talking. I can talk to myself. Remember, you and you needs to have a conversation. So I think that's a very critical way to think about it, because each of us, we all are a life force here, and we have something to bear on the conversation. We all have something to say and something to contribute. And if we look at it from that perspective, I think we will all can grow for the better for it. So this goes into the idea of accepting the responsibility to see it through and to make it better, not just give up because it's hard. That's why you need the courage, because it is hard sometimes. And realize that it's incumbent upon me. And then avoid the second guessing. So second guessing kills faith. It kills belief. It makes you doubt why you have faith in the first place. So if you have faith, and then you just keep going. And so step number 5, and this one might have been a bit surprising to some, express gratitude for the lesson. Yes, because you've just grown from here to there. Comfortably. you didn't dissolve. So you actually went there, and it was okay. It was okay. And each conversation builds more courage for the next one. And it decreases the stress. Again, you have this framework, so you don't have to be stressing over, oh no, I'm going to say the wrong thing. You don't have to worry about saying the wrong thing if your intent is noble. And even if you may choose words that are not most appropriate, you can correct it. You can learn from it. You can say, I'm sorry, let me choose another word. Let me expand my vocabulary. All right. And then remember, it creates more flow. So if you're grateful for this lesson, your flow is increasing in whatever which way, whether with your employees, your employer, your customer, yourself. And that expansion of flow is what we're trying to do, because that removes the tension and the friction. So in summarizing our 5-step framework, going back to this original slide, recognize and inquire, be willing and have the humility to do it, take the time necessary, have faith in a positive outcome, and express gratitude for the lesson. And you can express gratitude to the person you're speaking to. It doesn't matter if it's an employee, it doesn't matter the rank. And what tends to happen is people in a position of authority feel that they must always exert that authority. We need to let that down and just talk as normal people. If you have to exert some type of, yield out some punishment or whatever you have to do, that's separate. The first thing is get the communication, and then you determine the next steps, if that's what you need to do. I don't like the word punishment. Sorry to be so negative with that word, but whatever needs to come, whether it's a raise, hey, forget the punishment, raise, you got to give them the raise. All right, so the next step, make your own list. This is just to get you started in the thought process. Apply this to yourself, your situation, your circumstance, whether it's your business or your life in some way. And remember this quote, it is what we think we know already that often prevents us from learning. So think about what is it that you already know that you think might be getting in the way, or someone might tell you what that is. And then finally, I have a new hashtag, people. I am the same. Or actually 2, we are the same. Again, remember, different shoes, that maybe could be another hashtag. But we are the same, and we all need that courage to confront what we have to deal with in our respective lives. So with that, I thank you for listening and watching today. Remember to reach out to us on our website, WBECFlorida.org. You have my email and my phone number, and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And you can rewatch this on YouTube when it is posted. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Very, very nicely done, Emily. Thank you for taking such a difficult subject and giving us a wonderful framework. I can see how the same framework can be used, as you said, with all the different cast of characters. And I really liked that you said to use the same framework on ourselves, because the number one challenge, especially that women business owners, is that we're very critical of ourselves, right? So if we start with intention, if we look for a positive outcome, if we are grateful in our own conversations with ourselves, that will go a very, very long way to transferring and translating that to how we deal with others. Compliments to you, Emily. This was wonderful.
Yeah,
Thank you all.
I have to call out the thing that you said about do not fear anger.
Yeah.
It was such an eye opener, because you're right. It's not really the anger that causes the issue. When you said that it's how we respond to it, that just, I don't know. It's funny to think, it's like your quote at the end too. I mean, 45 years old, right? I can still learn because I've never, that just, wow. I wish I'd known that earlier in life, but now I have it to go forward, because that just was amazing. I don't know about you guys, but because that's truly what it is, right? I mean, we fear the anger, so we don't engage, and then things don't happen, right? That need to happen. So, oh my gosh, Emily, just thank you. I took so many notes. To our community, you're going to be seeing Miss Emily's beautiful face with these quotes coming out, because I'm going to use a bunch of these in our communications, because there were some amazing ones. I don't know if there's any other comments from the windows.
Yeah, I was going to say, I liked where you said to acknowledge the fact that it's a difficult conversation, like acknowledge it first. And I remember a situation I was in where I was the night editor that night at the Orlando Sentinel. And then I walked in the next day, and my boss didn't like a decision that had been made. And she pointed at me in the hall and she said, there'll be hell to pay. It sounded like Dickens. And she said that in front of a bunch of people. Right. And she had this British accent, and I was scared out of my mind. I mean, it was like, death coming to get me. And so I went and sat back down in my chair, and I thought, well, you know what? I can't just let that go. So I went into her office and I closed the door and I said, Anne, I sense that you're upset with me. And I kind of made her laugh. And then I said, can we talk about it? And then it turned out to be a lesson for both of us, on how the decision was made. It wasn't anybody's fault. It's something happened, after deadline that came out. But anyway, so it was a really interesting, I had to acknowledge first, I sense that you're upset with me.
I think it's a great way to put it. And also the idea that you diffused it. And diffusing anger is a wonderful technique to employ, for sure. That's a great example. Yeah. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for this. Has gone so quick. So in our last few minutes, I kind of want to go around the room and just see if we have any other last minute updates. And Nancy, let's start with you. Anything coming from WBEC that we need to let everybody know about?
Yes, well, actually, I'm going to invite everyone to go onto the WBEC website under the opportunities section. Click on the WBEC pitch competition, and you will get to see the winners of the recent pitch competition. And it's pretty amazing how much information these women could pack into the 90 seconds that they had to talk about how they've pivoted their companies, and lots of really great lessons learned there. So take a little bit of time, go to WBEC.org under opportunities, look for the pitch competition, and just sit back and enjoy these incredible videos.
Oh, that is awesome. Yeah, those I think really good learning for everybody. Diane, how about you? Let's just kind of go around real quick. Everybody get a chance to, any last minutes.
Yes, we have a virtual meetup. I see Joanna has posted hers as well. We have a virtual meetup in Central Florida on this Thursday, and it's for the Central Florida WBECs, but anybody can come. Any of y'all who are listening, anybody in the state can come. So it's a virtual meetup, and it's really just fun, and we'll just chat. No learning necessarily involved. It's real social.
And how do we know about it and get the link, Diane?
Well, here's the link right here.
Yeah, and so we're having one the day before for the Tampa Bay area WBECs. And really, if you would like to attend both, you are more than welcome to attend both. We are having ours Wednesday from 5:30 to 7, and the link is down below in the chat box. But if you would like, you can email one of us and we can get the links to you. And then also, speaking about pitch, I just wanted to mention 1 Million Cups. They offer that at the ECC, and the 1 Million Cups is a program where they work with you on your pitch, and you kind of present it in like the Shark Tank format without the sharks. And so if you're interested in working on a pitch and would like to, I will include the link to that in the chat box as well, or you can email me for that information.
Awesome. Okay, last call from any of the windows.
Oh, I would just like to share that in St. Lucie County, they are now giving out grants, I think it's $4,000 grants to residents who are in need with the whole COVID situation, and you have to apply for these grants, but they are making it available to residents, not just businesses. So that just came out.
Oh, that's amazing. And so we will also make sure to keep updating the COVID page on the website. And I'll make sure, once we get all these updates, so the team will all send that to me and we'll get that up there. So if there's any other updates we have, you'll be able to go under your regional page and find some good details. But we are right at 2 o'clock, so we want to be mindful of your time. And thank you so much to Emily for that phenomenal presentation. As we all know, this is now more than ever, we are having to engage in courageous conversations on various different levels. And so we will make sure if you're on today, you will get that. If you're on Facebook, you got to go over and join our group. It's free, and you'll get the link in there to the presentation. But otherwise, we just want to thank you guys for joining us, for opening your window with us and letting the fresh air of all of our conversation and community come into your doors. And we look forward to joining you next week on the next WBEC Florida Window. Thanks so much, everybody.
Bye. Have a great week.
Bye.